All right, Jessica. This show Underground has been a huge success, not just with audiences, but with critics as well. Why do you think it struck such a chord with people?
Oh, I think for a number of reasons. I think everybody loves a sort of a period drama, and then I think this one, even though it's a part of history that we think we've heard a lot of, I think specifically the Underground Railroad we haven't. And then I think if you add, John Legend and this incredible music and Joe and Misha, our creators slash writers, they're very sort of interesting take on it. It's very human and very personal, I guess. I think there are a lot of sort of slave narrative films around, but this one felt very personal in a way that you could bring it into your lounge room every week. And I think people have really embraced that. People have really embraced these people and their lives and their stories, and have wanted to share them with them every week. I think there's always going to be room for those shows on TV that you sit and you watch with your family, and it becomes sort of a ritual that you have at home, and something like this that people can really invest in the stories. I think there's always room for something like that.
Hmm. And it also comes at a really kind of important time in our history right now. I mean, with everything that's going on in America with Black Lives Matter and
Absolutely.
issues of diversity. What's extraordinary about it too is how entertaining it is. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing is you don't want to just sort of force a history lesson on people
right?
every week. You want it to be entertaining. You want it to be historically accurate. But I think it has to be a delicate balance, and especially for, I think, the age range that the network were going for, I think, is a lot younger than perhaps other similarly historical films or shows would be. So yeah, it has to be a delicate balance, and I feel the same way with. I've had several of my friends watch it, and they watch it. They want to watch it as sort of episode after episode after episode, where it's you just want more of it. You want to see more. You want to watch more. You want to know more. So yeah, I think they've balanced it very well between being something that you can learn from, but something that can also be something to entertain you.
Hmm. So let's talk about your character. She has a really interesting arc in the first season. Talk a bit about who she is.
I play Elizabeth Hawkes, who she's not from the South like many of the characters are. She lives in Ohio with her husband, John, who is a lawyer. And we kind of find Elizabeth at a point of aimlessness, perhaps. It's not really a spoiler. You find out in the first episode that she is unable to conceive. And I think she's a woman who has so much to give and so much energy and a lot of love. And I think the lack of her ability to give that to a child, or to make a home for a child, made way for something else, and she really throws herself in wholeheartedly to helping other people escape. She's a little hesitant to start with, but very quickly her and John make a visit down south, and they meet his family and see what is happening down there. And I think once you see that, how can you can't unsee something like that. And for someone it was quite a shock to see, that sets her on sort of a spiral into anything and everything that comes her way, it's quite the adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the great things about this show is how vast and sprawling it is, in that you see both the South and the North. You've got a bunch of storylines going on at the same time, and obviously the story of abolitionists in the North who oppose what's going on in the South is a really big aspect of that. And I think it's important to note that your husband, played by Mark Blucas in the show, is the brother-in-law of. I'm not. Excuse me. Is the
Brother.
brother?
Yeah.
He's your brother-in-law. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of Reed Diamond, the plantation owner. So there's that really interesting drama there. That conflict between the two of them.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's something that you kind of discover that perhaps wasn't always the case. You know, that definitely you see Reed Diamond's character has for his political ambitions and all of that has pushed himself further and further down this sort of terrible rabbit hole, which is something that Mark Lucas's character obviously entirely objects to, and so it's such a divide between them, and they are brothers and they are blood, but they are so different, and their lives are driven by such different causes and reasons.
Mm-hmm. And what's also great is that there are no black and white characters. I mean, every character in this show is so complex, and a lot of it is about what would you do to survive.
Yeah.
You know? Your character has a really great episode. I think it's the 7th episode where this little girl comes into your home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that really talk a bit about that episode, because it brings together so many different things about your character. The her wanting to have children but unable to have them, her wanting to help people, and then doing whatever is possible to follow through with that.
Yeah, episode 7 was one of my favorites. I think it was such an interesting choice by Joe and Misha to choose to write an episode from the perspective of children, because I think the world through the eyes of children is such a different place. But so yes, that's the episode where Elizabeth and Boo sort of come together and start their journey together. And it really shows Elizabeth's sort of mothering instincts, and that she would do anything to save this little girl. And I think at one point there's a conversation where they say, if we could just get Boo to safety, that then it's all worth it. I think it's from someone else, but it's just like that's exactly how Elizabeth felt at that point. So obviously she at this point cannot conceive a child of her own, but I think you get a sense that it's just completely reignited that hunger in her, and that love, and that I guess loneliness as well in a certain way, because I think being a woman in that time and not being able to do what was a woman's duty can be very isolating thing, even though her husband is very, very supportive, and in a lot of ways they have a very contemporary relationship. But I love those episodes with Boo. I think there's such a sort of what's that word for when a relationship, a symbiotic relationship?
Yes.
I think Elizabeth learnt and got a lot more from Boo when in trying to save Boo. I think Boo was the real savior there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and as you said, that again, this episode is from the perspective of the children, and you get like generational, regional, I mean, all of these different sides to what's going on.
Yeah.
What were some other standouts from this season for you? Either episodes that you were heavily involved in, or just as a viewer, moments that you thought were great.
I mean, I binge watched the whole show, guiltily so. I think the beauty of the show is that it's such a fast-paced, on-the-move narrative that there's always something completely new to see, and there's always someone new to meet, and the stakes are always so much higher with every episode. I mean, I loved, personally for my characters, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd episode where Elizabeth and John got to play a little bit of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and go undercover, and it was all sort of very fun and sexy, and then suddenly it spirals out of control, and that's where Jussie Smollett's character comes in, and there's sort of a lot of misinterpretation of a situation, and it gets out of hand, and they're taken hostage, and to just make that jump from there's this thing about people who are in situations, whether it be war zones or dangerous situations, where there's such an adrenaline rush, and it's exciting, and people are very excited by that, and there's the consequences aren't really thought about, and then suddenly there's the rude awakening of, we're not invincible, life isn't a movie. Well, in this case, for them, it's not a movie. This is life, and life is dark and dangerous, and there are consequences. So So I think it was this really clever transition between episodes of being very high and, you know, thinking they could take on the world, and then a very, very real reality check. So yeah, I really loved those episodes, but I also loved, I mean, the final episodes where finally we got the Macon 7, or what was left of them, made it to our house, to the safe house. And I loved working with those guys, with Journey and Aldous, and we spent an entire season sort of on different stages, or they were out, you know, running through swamps, and I was like, I'm just in my house. So no, that was great.
Yeah, you mentioned Jesse's character. I think what's great about that episode too, where you're taking hostage, is it challenges the audience and it challenges your characters as well, you know, because your heart is in the right place, but all of a sudden you're confronted with, you know, the possibility of your own lives ending, and you know, and he says, like, how could you know what I'm going through?
Yeah, I think that was such a very good choice by Joe and Misha, because I was really worried, or not really worried, but a bit nervous that the audience might misinterpret that, and say, because it's very early on, the only other time we see someone be whipped is Journey, when she gets her arms whipped, and then for the first real big whipping scene to be me whipping my husband at the hands of a runaway. I was very worried that that would be misinterpreted, but I guess, you know, you've got to give your audience credit, because everybody understood the point of that you know, this what these people had been through, and the lengths that they had gone to escape, and the loss that they had suffered, and I mean, even just hunger would drive a person crazy. So I didn't want to seem like, oh, these poor white people being victimized, and I know that's not how it came across. But it was definitely a very bold choice. But I think that's what's really beautiful about the show, is it does make very bold and surprising choices.
Absolutely. So I just want to talk about, as you mentioned, it's a period show. It's impeccably designed, and I spoke with your costume designer and production.
Karen.
Yeah, I spoke with both of them, and so I just want to get your perspective as an actor. What do those details of production, of costumes and set design, what does that help in terms of your character?
Oh, I think it informs everything. I've done a fair few period dramas in my time. I think this is the last one for a little while, maybe. But I think I'm very drawn to them, because as soon as you put on a corset and you put on another layer, and you're sort of pulled in, and you're held tight, and you're standing up straight, and you've got a hoop skirt, you just get this immediate sense of being rigid and stiff, and sort of, you know, stuck in a world, stuck in a costume, stuck in a room, stuck in a relationship, stuck in a gender role. So I think it's a kind of a lazy way to starting a character, I think. I mean, other than the words on the page, which are obviously the most important thing, when you have an incredible costume and then an incredible set design created around you, it makes your job very, very easy. And especially, I mean, not that I have any sense of how it must have been, but being in the South, in a corset, in wool, in 115-degree heat, you get a sense of what that world could have been. I mean, I certainly wasn't running through swamps and through fields and running for my life, but you get a sense of these people a little bit more. So yeah, period dramas, I mean, I just think they're brilliant.
And shooting on a real plantation too.
Yeah. And that was, the plantation was, I've never really felt an energy like that, and I think some of that came from the cast and the crew, and there was a sort of a deep respect and understanding of the place, the space that we were. But I mean, that land has a lot of stories to tell, and again, the heat is so repressive that you just sit there on sort of the balconies of this amazing big house, but you're overlooking the slave homes in the distance, and it's just it's certainly very eye-opening and very yeah, it's a very different experience.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm from the South, so I know all about
You
that
are?
heat.
Whereabouts are you
Yeah.
from?
North Carolina.
Oh, right.
So
Okay. I have a
yeah.
friend shooting there right now. There you go.
Oh, no kidding, huh? So yeah, I know all about that heat.
I bet you do. Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
never had to wear a corset there, but
No. Oh, yeah, but yeah. It's like the bit where they pull you right in and then they go, right, lunch. Yeah, well, I guess I'll have soup.
um, so you guys are coming back for season two. I keep asking every time I run into one of your actors or Joe or Misha, have you read any scripts yet? Do we have any idea what we can look forward to yet?
Oh my God, I'm like this. Every now and again, instead of texting, like, please, just like this at their doors. I know nothing as yet, and I'm desperate to, but I feel like I'll probably get the script
Hmm.
a week before we shoot. Once we get that, they'll be like, here you go. But we're all equally desperate to know what's going on, and where they could possibly take these people and who will be joining this ensemble as well. There's already such an interesting ensemble and interesting mix of people. Yeah, I'm very excited. I don't know.
Well, I certainly look forward to it. Thank you so
Good.
much. Yeah. Thank you, and congratulations on the show. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
It was lovely talking to you too. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great night. You're in.
Thank you. I will. Oh yes,
You're
yeah.
welcome.
Sun is going down now. It's lovely.
All right. Take
All right.
care.
See you later. Bye.
See you.